The timeline of the X-Men movies is a mess of contradictions brought on by various writers constantly adding to a replica of the comic continuity over 7 films in a 15-year period without discussion. However, if you divide it into 3 universes, A, B and C, it really is much simpler. These correspond with 3 distinct phases of writing: the original continuity, a second which attempts to adapt the old continuity seamlessly into a strong origin story without raising too many questions, and a third attempt to consolidate these two. The following theories allow for 3 distinct timelines which intersect and overlap repeatedly but diverge at 2 major points. In Universe A, which covers the continuity of the first 3 X-Men movies and the 2 Wolverine films, Charles and Eric meet not in 1962 in their early 30s, but in 1949 in their late teens. The events of First Class and Days of Future Past do not happen. The world does not become truly aware of mutants until the late 20th century. Charles forms the X-Men considerably later, recruiting Hank, Scott, Aurora, and Jean. Charles and Eric remain friends from 1949 through to at least the early 80s, visiting a young Jean Grey while Charles still has the use of his legs. At some point after this they have a falling out, possibly over how Charles forces Jean to repress the Phoenix Force. Eric teams up with Mystique, who has been laying low for most of the 20th century, and then recruits a lobotomized Victor Creed, now a lumbering brute. X-Men 1, 2 and 3 play out, Scott, Charles and Jean die, and Eric and Raven are depowered. This accounts for why Charles said he met Eric at age 17 in X-Men 1, and why he is unfamiliar with Magneto's cerebro and telepathy blocking helmet, which is clearly not the same one he would have got from Shaw, which Charles would have been aware of. Wolverine got his metal claws in 1979 and then loses them in 2013, though this also happens in Universe B. This is where things happen differently and we get the events of First Class. 2 major changes kick this one off. One is Sebastian Shaw witnessing the first manifestation of Eric's magnetic powers. His attempting to shape Eric into a weapon has a profound effect on the young boy, locking his abilities to his anger and sending him on a quest for a very specific vengeance. In Universe A, Shaw was not present in Auschwitz, and in fact probably wasn't born, as otherwise his plan in First Class would have gone unopposed. The other change is that in this universe, young Charles comes downstairs and discovers young Raven. In Universe A, he was asleep and never met her, and she simply snuck away, missing that powerful connection. It is simply too significant a bond for them to ignore time and again on meeting and affecting one another in X-Men 1 to 3. In fact, if you want to get really tinfoil hat theory on this one, Germany is 6 hours ahead of New York, so if the incident where Shaw killed Eric's mother occurred at 9:05 in the morning there, Eric's resulting anguish could have been felt across the world by a sleeping Charles at 2:05, waking him up and sending him downstairs to investigate what would turn out to be Raven. So once again, the events of Universe B would depend entirely on the presence of Sebastian Shaw. So in Universe A, perhaps he wasn't born at all, or was born not a mutant. This means the assassination of Trask in Paris 1973 was also new to Universe B, and in Universe A, without this attempt on his life, Trask never got full funding or Raven's DNA. If he had, the Sentinels would have been a government-funded necessity and present in the earlier X-Men films. Having said that, the instance of a Sentinel in the Danger Room program in the Universe A X-Men 3 hints at a lurking presence that implies the mutant response robots are still being developed in a way that will lead to a similar grim future in that 2023. Despite these differences, this Universe B still plays out in similar ways to Universe A, with Jean becoming Dark Phoenix and murdering Scott, evident as Wolverine has these memories in Days of Future Past. However, it's possible that in this Universe B she did not destroy Charles, and Eric did not get depowered. Alternatively, Charles's mind went into the body of that comatose mutant at the epilogue of X-Men 3. He then had his face remodeled with plastic surgery to look like his previous visage, and had his own legs broken to replicate his previous injury. Plus, Magneto just got better. I prefer to think of it as the former, and Jean never killed Charles, as the latter is bonkers. Either way, I like to interpret Logan's reaction of how is this possible at the end of The Wolverine as amazement that Charles and Eric are working together, rather than that Charles is alive, simply because it's never mentioned in Days of Future Past. Either that, or the epilogue from The Wolverine is a remnant from Universe A, and is actually nothing to do with the Universe B 2023 we start with in Days of Future Past. Universe B and possibly A culminate in the events set in the dark future of 2023. This is erased when Raven escapes the assassination attempt in Paris, Eric attacks Nixon, and Raven shows him mercy. The timeline then diverges and skews off into the new Universe C. This is a way for Bryan Singer and company to undo the events of Universe A and the hash job that the X-Men 3 storyline became, while still retaining the strongest aspects of both universes and bringing us back to a new timeline that will continue on through the 70s into the 80s and 90s for upcoming films and result in the brighter future that Logan wakes up in. This would seem to be sometime after 2006 when the aftermath of X-Men 3 would have taken place, wherein Scott, Jean and Charles are alive and the events of X-Men 2 and 3, The Wolverine, and possibly even X-Men 1 didn't happen. So what did happen for sure in Universe C? The events of First Class and the 1973 parts of Days of Future Past, along with everything that's coming up in X-Men Apocalypse, The Wolverine 3 and beyond. Some notes on characters. Emma Frost now appears to be dead, killed by Trask during his experiments. She could still conceivably have given birth to a child she named Emma, who inherited her diamond skin mutant ability, who was adopted by Kayla's family to become Silver Fox's younger sister in the events of X-Men Origins Wolverine. This happened in 1979 as the 3 Mile Island disaster occurs during its events. Or of course it could be another mutant named Emma with diamond skin. Alex Summers, Havoc, in First Class is the perfect age to have married and sired a son named Scott in 1967. This would mean Scott was 5 during Days of Future Past and 38 during X-Men. Because he's about 12 during X-Men Origins Wolverine. Or maybe a bit older. Moira McTaggart, the CIA agent from First Class, had a daughter whom she named Moira, who talks with a Scottish accent and is one of Charles's friends in Universe A. The director for the Department of Defense in X-Men 3 is a big black man named Trask. It's feasible that Bolivar could have sired him sometime before the events of Days of Future Past, or it could be an unconnected man also named Trask. You decide. If Mystique and Azazel had a son, as it is implied Nightcrawler is, he must have been conceived within months of their first meeting, as Azazel was dead within a year thanks to Trask. Or maybe they met during Universe A at some different point and she had Nightcrawler there, but Nightcrawler never existed in Universe B or C. Or maybe she's not Nightcrawler's mum, we never find out. In Universe A, William Stryker meets James/Logan and Victor in a Vietnamese prisoner of war camp before drafting them for Team X. This could still have happened during Universe B as the war wasn't over until 1975, and in 73, Stryker clearly hasn't yet met Wolverine/James/Logan. Either way, in Universe A he sends his son to Charles' school without the desired result. In X2 he says Wolverine has been wandering around for 15 years without his memory, when it's actually been 27 years. This we have to interpret as Stryker either A, just messing with Logan, or B, that in Universe A the Weapon X incident happened way later in 1991, and X-Men Origins Wolverine took place in Universe B. In X-Men 2, we also see a human-looking Hank McCoy on TV, but he's hairy in X-Men 3. We can assume from this that he did meet Mystique at some point in Universe A, or if not, developed some sort of mutation inhibitor over the years. It certainly wasn't what the bald, walking Charles was using at the beginning of X-Men 3 though, as he would not have been able to use his telepathy on Jean. And it is implied in multiple timelines I've read that Raven was the one who assassinated John F. Kennedy, with Eric being blamed and incarcerated. They may have omitted this from the final film to retain sympathy for the character. So that's the X-Men timeline simplified, codified and clarified. If future X-Men movie writers want to contact me for more details, I charge a very reasonable hourly rate for my continuity untangling services.